Hi everyone, it's Anna from Sprint Tax here. Whether you are just arriving to the US on your J1 visa, whether you're already here or whether you've already gone, there'll be a lot of new experiences and learnings along the way. One of these will be the US tax system. There's a couple of things about non-resident tax that you should be aware of, so let's dive in. The first important thing to be aware of is around residency for tax purposes, and as a J1 intern trainee, summer work travel, camp counsellor, au pair, teacher or researcher on a J visa, you're generally given 2 calendar years of non-resident status out of the last 6 calendar years preceding the current year. And when you are deemed a non-resident for tax purposes, you are treated differently to that of your US citizen colleagues or resident alien colleagues. But then if you've been here longer than that 2-year period, the IRS use a test called the substantial presence test, which would determine your residency for tax purposes. And if you've been here long enough, you could actually be deemed a resident for tax purposes and you'd be treated in the same way of your US citizen or resident colleagues. When you start your employment with your employer in the US, you'll generally be asked to complete some pre-employment tax forms to help your employer understand how to tax you correctly on your US income. One of the most common forms you'll be asked to complete is Form W4, and it's important that if you are a non-resident alien for tax purposes, that you're completing this as a non-resident alien in order to make sure you are taxed correctly. For example, in some cases, non-residents might complete this incorrectly and they might complete it as a resident alien, as such claiming resident deductions and credits that they're not entitled to, which would then lead you to a tax bill when tax return time comes around. So it's very important to make sure that you are completing this correctly. Another common error or cause for confusion for J1 visa holders can be FICA taxes, or also known as Social Security and Medicare, and it's essentially a tax that's paid into that will assist you with the cost of healthcare when you get to a certain age. But for a non-resident for tax purposes on a J1 visa, you shouldn't be paying FICA taxes. So you can check on your pay stub or your W2 for Social Security and Medicare withheld, and if it is withheld incorrectly, there are opportunities to claim it back. You'd firstly need to ask your employer for the FICA refund, and if they refuse, you can apply for it through the IRS using Form 843 and 8316. But really the most important thing is to make sure that your employer is aware of your tax position and whether you should be FICA exempt or not from the point of your employment, as that money is better off in your pockets and saves you the hassle of trying to get it back at a later date. After you've made sure that you are taxed correctly on your income during the tax year, then you will have certain tax filing requirements when we get to the US tax filing season. And just to run through a couple of them, generally the minimum filing requirement for all non-residents who are present on US soil under F, J, M or Q visas would be Form 8843, and this even needs to be completed if you didn't earn any income during the tax year. But in most cases, or many cases as a J1 visa holder, you will be earning income, and when you earn anything over $0 of taxable US sourced income, you'll generally need to file a federal tax return, which is the 1040 NOR for non-residents, and then you may have state tax filing requirements depending on your state and depending on your personal circumstances. One common error we would see from some non-resident J1 visa holders is they might file incorrectly using resident software. So one important thing to touch on is around TurboTax. TurboTax are an amazing company, and anyone that we determine to be a resident alien, we would send them their way. But if you are a non-resident for tax purposes, you cannot use TurboTax, as they only assist with resident taxes. As well as that, if there are any other resident software that only assist with resident taxes and you're a non-resident for tax purposes, you would not be able to use any resident software. Lastly, I wanted to touch on some of the solutions we have here at Sprint Tax that can assist with your non-resident taxes. The first is Sprint Tax Forms, which can help with the pre-employment side of things, with determining your residency for tax purposes, whether you should be FICA exempt or not, whether you are tax treaty eligible or not, and ultimately preparing your pre-employment tax forms like a W4, 8233 or W8BEN, ultimately making sure you are taxed correctly on your income. Secondly, we have Sprint Tax Returns, which can help with your non-resident tax returns from Form 8843 to your federal return, to your state tax returns, to a FICA return, an amended return. And so they are some of the Sprint Tax solutions that we have here at Sprint Tax that can help with the non-resident tax world for our J1 visa holders. Thanks so much everyone for tuning into this video. We really hope you found it helpful in learning about the whole world of non-resident tax in the US, from understanding how to get taxed correctly on your J1 employment to understanding your tax filing requirements as a result of receiving income during the tax year. So we really hope that whether you are just embarking on your J1, whether you're already here or whether your J1 has been and passed, that you have or will have had an amazing J1 experience.